You're listening to Accounting for Growth, the podcast where growth leaders in accounting go beyond referrals alone and think bigger. I'm Chad Person, your host and the founder and president of Accounting CMO. Each episode, we bring in experts at the edge of accounting innovation to share quick, actionable insights that help you lead with confidence, drive smart growth, and move your firm forward. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Accounting for Growth podcast. I'm Chad Person. One of the things I often see as I work inside of professional services firms is the absence of true leadership in the areas of business development, sales in some cases. I work with firms that often have some sense of tactically how to go to market from a business development perspective. Many of them have tools like a CRM. But what they're missing oftentimes is real structure, often accountability, and often need coaching to drive consistent results. And so this is a significant topic, has been for I think decades in the accounting profession in particular. And I'm excited to have Chris Cocca join us today. Chris helps firms of all flavors and sizes define business development processes that actually get used. Build the right team structures, provide the leadership layer, obviously, that can be missing so frequently in these firms. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much for having me, Chad.
Great to have you, and give us a quick overview of your work, and you know, I refer to you always when I talk about you as a fractional sales executive or sales leader, and give us a sense of that and what kind of firms you typically help.
Yeah, I really focus, Chad, on a couple of main areas to help the firms that I work with. Most firms out there are lacking a couple of different basic things that are causing them to have growth that's inconsistent. And so I'm looking for firms that maybe don't quite have the right process or system around business development. They have a CRM, but they really don't have a well-defined process that everybody's executing. I also look at firms that I think you mentioned structure and accountability. There are a lot of firms out there that really don't have great measures, great KPIs, great scorecards, great ways internally of looking at business development so that they know where they're at and where they're going. So I'm looking for that as an opportunity or a gap. And then the last thing is around the leadership piece. Most firms are great at with their people in terms of client delivery, in terms of technical knowledge, terms of their reputation in the market. They're all excellent at that, but they do struggle with the coaching and the training and the development of anybody in the firm that touches business development. And it's not just the partners of a firm. It could be managers. It could be salespeople. It could be anybody. It could be marketing people such as yourself. It could be anybody that touches sales or business development. And so I'm looking for opportunities to help them in that area so that they can really grow their talent, grow their team, grow their business in a way that a lot of people are lacking because they've just never had that coaching or development. They've had plenty of technical training coaching, but they've had very little business development coaching.
No, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That paints a great picture. It's interesting. I mean, you and I, of course, specialize in that professional services, but certainly deep, I think, specialization in the CPA or the accounting profession. It's an interesting environment, if you will, in that, I often refer to it as a seller-doer model. You've got these CPAs and consultants who are, as you suggested, technical experts. But they didn't often choose that career because they wanted to sell anything, right? And in that way, sales kind of can have a negative connotation, right? And so talk to me about that. Do you experience that quite frequently in the profession?
I do. You think about starting your career. I was a CPA, Chad, actually,
right.
And worked in public accounting and then worked in private industry and started a tax function at a company. So I've been in their shoes. I feel their pain. And, I love doing the client work, but nobody really ever prepared me for bringing in new work. It just
Sure.
wasn't a thing. And if you think about, if you're going to stay at a firm, you're going to move up through a firm, you've got to build a book of business. Any good partner at a firm has built a book over time, right? And a lot of that is just really great relationships in the market. A lot of that is referrals from other clients. A lot of that is their network that they've built over time. But it is business development, and they have to be able to show value. They have to be able to build relationships and rapport. They have to be able to differentiate. I mean, that's, we could have a whole podcast on
Yes, we
how
could.
accounting firms differentiate in the
Yeah.
market. So they've got to do all these things. And most of these people don't have a sales background. They don't feel like they're a salesperson, quote unquote.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a very important part of what they do. And I love the term seller-doer. I use the same term, Chad. And I think the struggle in the seller-doer environment is the balance between the two. So how do you balance the 80 or 90% of the doing with the 10 or 20% of the business development? And so you've got to be really, really good and efficient at that 10 to 20%, or you're not going to have enough work to do. Back to the doer part, you're not going to be able to fully utilize the capacity of your firm. You're not going to be able to scale. You're not going to be able to get to the level that you want to get as a firm, whether you want to sell the firm, whether you want to turn that over to the next generation. You're just not going to be able to get there without some constant organic growth. And that's the focus. You can always acquire firms, but ultimately all the best firms consistently grow organically.
Right.
And they've got to figure out a way, even if they're not natural born rainmakers. That's another term that I use, is a rainmaker.
Sure.
Even if they're not a natural born rainmaker, how can they gain the skills and the confidence to go out there and capture that business, whether it's, new clients, or even whether it's internally with their existing clients,
That's
and
exactly
capturing,
right. Yep.
more share of wallet and being able to do more for the clients that they currently have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And from my perspective, going back to what you said, which is spot on, there's capacity, right, is such an ongoing, has been for so long an ongoing concern. And you're right. I mean, when you've got so much responsibility day in and day out to manage client expectations, manage your team in the process of serving that client, you better be really efficient in what you have in front of you when it comes to new business generation, whether that be expanding services to clients or net new business. You're right. You better be really efficient at it. And is it that lack of structure that we mentioned at the beginning? Is that where you see the primary ways, business development or growth suffers from that sales and sales process perspective, new business generation?
Yeah, there's two pieces of that equation. One is, do you have the structure internally? Do you have a really repeatable business development process that's tied to your CRM? Do you know exactly how you're going to get from a qualified lead to a proposal to a new engagement, and
Yeah.
all the steps in between? Are you even qualifying leads the right way? Do you have a methodology to qualify leads? Do you have an understanding of all of those things so that you can execute? That's one big part. The other big part is the capability part, and the competency part. So if you were to take 10 partners in a firm and go deep on their business development competencies, you're going to find a wide range of competency between the best partner and the least effective partner. And you really have to assess that, Chad. I think this all things are created equal in accounting, where all partners should have the same goal and same expectation. I think that that's a recipe for failure.
Sure.
And I think that the more that you understand who your potential rainmakers are and who they're not, then you really can put people in the right position to grow. Because if I've got two partners, one is a rainmaker that has all the competencies in the world, and they're natural, they're just natural at it, and I have one that's the polar opposite, I'm going to want to rebalance that equation between those two individuals. And I might give the rainmaker a higher goal and higher expectations and more support. And then in return for that, I've got to give that rainmaker some relief on the doing part.
Sure.
and build a team around the rainmaker that can actually get the work done. And at
Yep.
one of the firms that I'm working with, that's exactly on the cast side. One of their top two or three rainmakers in the firm is the partner in charge of casts.
Yep.
And they figured out a way to build a team around this individual so that he can go out and capture the work, provide a leadership role. You know, he's still client facing, but his in the weeds day to day is not nearly to the level that another partner would be at. So you've got to really rebalance the equation a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a partner that's not a rainmaker, they still should be able to build their existing client book, right? They should be able to expand client relationships
Yep.
within what they currently have, but they're not going to go out and hunt new business, and you shouldn't expect them to.
Yes, I mean, what an important topic. Again, a whole nother podcast, right? But what an important topic around. You can't only. No firm just has rainmakers only, and honestly, I don't think that's a sustainable approach, as you just said, right? You need people that actually can execute the work, and so yeah, so spot on. I mean, one of the things I love about your approach is that again, it gives everybody has a home when it comes to growth, right? There are those people that just have that ability to make it rain. But to be successful, you need people that really are technically sharp and could come in and solve those real difficult problems. And those people are needed in a sales process. You need the people
Sure.
that are just really great at just serving clients and just creating this, really positive client experience. And oftentimes, as you know, during the sales process, the whole team is interfacing, right, with that prospective client, and
Absolutely.
they're getting a sense of how well they're going to be served, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's takes the team, right, and coming in and working with them like you do to kind of everybody has a role. And can contribute to growth is so empowering for a firm trying to pursue
Right.
sustainable growth, right?
Right.
It's
Right. And
awesome.
even building the right goals, Chad, if you think about you're a firm and you need to bring in $10 million of incremental business, how do you attribute that goal in the firm? I would argue that a lot of firms don't really even get it down to the individual level the right way. There's just this expectation at a high level that they're going to hit the 10 million. But in terms of, Chad, if you're a partner in the firm, what is your contribution to that?
Right.
And have you built a cushion in so that all the individual goals are bigger than the firm goals, so that if certain individuals fall short, you still have room to be able to hit your number? I think that's a really important thing. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do, but it starts with really assessing what you have in terms of capability and competency, really understanding your go-to-market strategy and where you think your growth is going to come from and how that's going to roll up, and then assigning the right goals to the right people. And then I think we could talk in a little bit more detail, if you want, about the accountability piece, because even if you've done all those things and you've got the right people with the right goals, you still might not be successful without the right accountability process. And most firms that I know of, there's really not any well-defined accountability loop on business development. There is on doing client work and
Sure.
capacity and all the
Sure.
technical things. They have on the operations side, they're having all kinds of great conversations every week about that, but they're really not having the same conversations every week about business development.
Well, and oftentimes, I mean, again, as you just suggested, on the client service side, there's often some form, every firm's a little different, but some form of a scorecard, right? Some
Right.
way to,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's often missing on the business development side, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Most firms don't have a business development scorecard. There isn't the visibility to performance.
Mm. Yeah.
They can't forecast properly because they don't have the right data. And for firms that really pride themselves on their client data and managing data, I would hope that those firms would also want to have the same level of rigor and detail around their pipeline, where their clients are coming from, where they're getting leads, what they're winning and losing, how long it takes them to close, what is their conversion. We could go on and
Sure.
on
Sure.
about
Sure.
really, really critical data so that they can not only plan for future work, right, which is really important, back to the capacity thing, but also calibrate a little bit, because I'm not sure how you can make adjustments in what you're doing if you don't have the right scorecard and the right data.
Exactly. Exactly. Well said. Okay, let's talk about, because again, lots of opportunities to drive better performance in all the ways, whether it's process or coaching, etc. Scorecards. Talk to me about a little bit about ROI for someone that's listening in. I mean, what kinds of outcomes do you see firms have when they help when you help them build the right business development structure and leadership?
Yeah, I think there are a couple key metrics that I measure with firms when we go through and work together. One would be conversion. So, are you converting your qualified leads at a higher rate? Chad, even if you're able to improve conversion by 10%, which doesn't sound like a lot, is a significant that's a significant
Big impact.
multiplier. It's a really big impact. Conversion would be one. Um, Believe it or not, the sales cycle is another ROI metric. So if you look at what's in CRM, a lot of the things that are in CRM are there for months and months and maybe over a year. And the sales cycle is extremely long. And it doesn't mean that you can cut the sales cycle to a couple of days, but you can take a significant amount of time and effort out of the sales cycle and give that time back to the partners, and be able to close things a lot faster, whether you're winning or losing. And just be more back to the efficiency part of what we talked
Right.
about.
Right.
There's some efficiency right there with the business development, with that 10 to 20% is how long is it take you to go end to end through a deal, and can we take time out of that by executing a better process, right? It goes back to, in order to do that, you've got to have the right process to be able to cut that time down.
Right.
And then I'd say the last two pieces that we could measure would be just overall pipeline. So we focus on building out the right system and structure to generate more leads. And we partner really closely with somebody like you, Chad, on the
Right.
marketing side to make sure that we're handling anything that's coming inbound through the marketing effort, that we're quickly qualifying or disqualifying leads, but that we're building the top of the funnel and building a more predictable and robust pipeline. So pipeline growth would definitely be a measure.
Right.
And the last one is what I would call the X factor of ROI that I think I can point to. It would be, can we get more people in the firm to touch business development and contribute to business development? So think about if you could increase that by 10 or 20 or 30%, which I've done with firms. That's a force multiplier,
Yeah.
and amazing. And it also helps. I talk to partners all the time, and they worry about, how do I build the next generation of leaders in my firm?
Right.
Well,
Right.
one of the ways to do that is to get them involved in business development, get them to help build their own book of business, incentivize them with the right compensation, and coach and develop them early so
Yes.
that they get comfortable. Because I think today's managers need a little bit more support, because
Yeah.
they're overwhelmed by all the technical and client work that they have to do. But many of them could be really, really strong in business development. They just need the right level of support
Yep.
and
Yep.
coaching.
Yep. No question. I mean, beyond all the increasingly technical requirements, technologies, everything that exists out there that makes it more complex to do their job, the unique, hybrid work environments that we have too can have can sometimes have a negative impact on them gaining access to professionals who are seasoned and they could learn from, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of things there. I mean, so yeah, from an ROI perspective, I can say as a marketer, when you've got the right processes and structure, scorecards, et cetera, in place, as you suggested, it provides a much more impactful way for marketing to plug in, right? I've always looked at marketing's role as our primary focus is to drive more sales or business development opportunities, new business opportunities, and when you have that clean or that process, right, that everybody understands and can follow, that sales enablement factor really kicks in, and you're able to come in and I don't care if your firm doesn't have a full-time marketing person, maybe they outsource the marketing function, or maybe they just have some administrative support of it. There's always sales enablement or marketing support that happens often during a pursuit. And it just makes the whole sales and marketing alignment much more impactful, bottom line. So,
No doubt about it.
yeah, lots of positives there. Okay, well, hey, let's move into some final thoughts. Again, I know I've heard you speak a number of times, and always excited about the next time that I have to do that, to listen to you. Talk to me about real quickly, if one of these firms that hasn't had the privilege to listen to you in a webinar or speak, if somebody's listening and they know that their business development culture or function processes need some help. What should they do? What's the first step?
Probably the easiest thing to do would be just reach out on LinkedIn, and connect with me on LinkedIn. I will feature my website, chriscoccasales.com. And on the website, Chad, if you ever wanted to jump on and book a meeting with me, you could do it right there. So either way, either a 15-minute meeting or connect with me on LinkedIn, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with anybody out in the audience that's just curious, wants to learn a little bit more. And even if I can't help somebody directly, I will always point them in the right direction, and give them, some resources to think about and use. Because I really do want all those firms out there to be successful with their business development, and finding that balance between business development and delivering the great client work, and most importantly, building a culture of business development. That's the last thing that I really pride myself in, is working with firms to build a stronger growth culture, or a culture of business development. So would be happy to chat, happy to talk on LinkedIn. Would welcome any opportunities to have a conversation.
Well, so I've had, for those listeners, I've had the opportunity to sit through some of your trainings. I guess that's what I would call it. And I can tell you that in my own business, they've been very impactful. And so I've got, again, firsthand experience at leveraging the approaches, et cetera, that you subscribe. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Chris. Really appreciate it today.
Thank you for having me, Chad.
All the other listeners, thank you for joining as well. I hope you took something away from today's conversation. Business development needs sales. Certainly when you're into the sales cycle, it needs structure, right? It needs leadership, coaching that I know Chris and his team can provide. You'll see when we put this out, you'll see the links to his site out there in the post as well. And again, thank you for joining us today. And until next time, keep accounting for growth. That's a wrap on this episode of Accounting for Growth, powered by your CMO. We help accounting leaders break the status quo. Please subscribe, share, and stay sharp. Your next big growth move starts now.